Would you believe me if I told you that Ross bought his first commercial real estate deal out of state, tenants in place and cash flowing, and it was over 300,000 square feet?
We don't believe you.
Today I'm gonna walk you through how Ross found the property, why he decided to do it, and his value add strategy moving forward. And at the end of the video, I'm gonna give you 4 key takeaways of what Ross did right throughout the entire process so that you can go and do this too. So after a 2024 planning retreat in Palm Springs, I took a flight out to Chicago and caught the train up to Milwaukee so that I could attend the grand opening ceremony of the self-storage facility at the Center in Racine, Wisconsin. So as I said earlier, the Center is a 300,000 square foot, multi-building industrial facility that was the original home of the Hamilton Beach Manufacturing Company. You may know them from all of your kitchen appliances that you've ever had. Now, after Hamilton Beach moved out, over the years it was converted into a multi-tenant facility, serving as essentially flex space for different types of industrial businesses, whether they needed office, industrial manufacturing space, or just storage. Now, Ross is a very unique real estate investor. With a software background, he actually created his own program that scours the internet for his specific deal criteria. So he doesn't have to log into multiple different online platforms just to look at properties. His software sends them to him and he gets to just pick from there which assets he's gonna focus on. Since the Center was listed at a price per square foot below his threshold and it was over a certain amount of square feet, it went to the top of his list. Ross had been following me here on YouTube for a little while and saw that I was working on a very similar property called the Peerless Mill in Chattanooga, where we were taking some of the unused space and looking at converting them into self-storage. So I started coaching him over a year ago on how to properly go about buying this commercial real estate asset, since it was his first deal, and let's be honest, a pretty big one at that. After working on the project for about 6 to 9 months, we flew out to Milwaukee and took an in-person tour, met with the property manager, met with the lender, met with the city of Racine to make sure that our plans were in line with what could be done in the space. Now, after that on-site tour, Ross actually asked me on the way to the airport if I'd be willing to partner with him on this deal. And since I'd been involved in it for so long and knew how much of a home run it was, I mean, think about it, almost 300,000 square feet, tenants in place. I mean, it's a no-brainer. With the vacant space on the property, we could build over 400 self-storage units that are really already climate controlled. They're indoors. So that's why I was in Milwaukee, was to celebrate Ross and Kurt and the rest of the team and their accomplishments on finishing phase 1 of what could be over 400 self-storage units eventually. Now, y'all know how much I like industrial space. There's so much potential for properties like this because they're in good urban areas. There's a lot of demand from users for this type of square footage. And let's be real, these older industrial facilities are just better looking and cooler and have more character than a lot of the properties that are being built today. So let's talk about the deal. Especially in a market like today, buying an asset that already has tenants in place, especially multiple tenants, with cash flow coming in and an additional value add component is crucial to making sure that you survive the next 1 to 2 years, let alone thrive. And that is what Ross did right. He found an existing building that was in relatively good condition for its age, already had those tenants in place with decent leases, with a good management team in place so that we didn't really have to overhaul the operations so much. We just needed to focus on finishing out some of the older spaces and putting a new use in there. Now, let's get to those 4 key takeaways that I was telling you about earlier, what Ross did right. Number 1, know what you're looking for. He knew exactly what he was looking for and built his own method for finding those deals. He knew that he wanted to buy a property below a certain price per square foot with a certain amount of square feet to 1, justify his time and attention, but 2, to also help him find scalability outside of his market. See, Ross is located in California. So for him to go invest in Milwaukee means that he's got to find an investment that is of a good enough size that it would be worth his attention. That's pretty much exactly the strategy that I followed when I went and started buying property in Chattanooga. Even though Chattanooga is only 2 hours away, I knew it would be a little distracting from what I was already working on within a 10 to 15 minute radius of my office. Now, you might not be a software engineer and have the capabilities to do that. I certainly don't, but find the method of finding properties that works for you. That could be sending out direct mail, it could be knocking on doors, it could be just looking at what's available on LoopNet and Craigslist. But whatever works for you, find it and be consistent with your farming in those areas. Number 2, find a mentor or coach. Ross found a mentor and coach that had already been there and done that. Me. I was working on the Peerless Mill, which was 5 times the size of the center, and had some very similar strategies as to how I was going to monetize vacant spaces. Bringing that knowledge and expertise to the table gave Ross the confidence that, one, he could pull this project together, but it also gave the lenders confidence that Ross was going to be able to pull this project together. You are not the only person in the deal that has to be convinced that this deal can happen. You've got all of the other stakeholders, such as your equity investors or partners, the lenders, the city. That's why it's so important that you have people in your corner that know this specific asset type. If you're doing retail, find a mentor or coach that knows how retail works, the ins and outs of it. You don't want to hire a multifamily coach or find a multifamily partner to do a retail deal. Number 3, put together the right partnership. Kurt on his team knows everything about construction. He has a couple of money partners involved as well, and I helped bring the knowledge to the table so that when we went and presented the deal to the banks, they were more than happy with the team that he had put together. He didn't really have to sell the bank on why we were the team to pull this project off. You might be thinking, where do I find those people? Well, get out and network. Start following people on Instagram. Ross reached out to me because of what I was doing on YouTube. There are so many different ways for you to put yourself out there to find those right people and just start building your team. And number 4, be persistent. I mentioned earlier in the video that Ross and I had worked on this deal for 6 to 9 months before it closed. And the deal had honestly fallen in and out of contract because the seller didn't know if he wanted to keep working with us, but Ross knew exactly what he had to have in order for the deal to work for him. But he kept at it, he kept working with the sellers to get exactly what he needed, and it all came together in the end. And just to share with you how intense Ross was taking this, he put together a 105-page business plan for his self-storage facility. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should be doing that on every single deal that they should do, but Ross put together a plan that was undeniable for partners or lenders when they were looking at it as to whether or not he knew what he was talking about. He had done all of the research. Sure, he wasn't from the market, but he had done all the market research. He had talked with all of the stakeholders in the local area to make sure that this was a project that was going to succeed. In his business plan, Ross covered the team that was going to be pulling this together, the financing, what we were going to be doing with the self-storage facility, how many units we were going to be delivering, why there was a vacancy of units in the market. And there are appendices after appendices of the different market research that he had pulled together to prove his thesis as to why self-storage would work here. So there you have it for pulling off a 300,000 square foot investment for your first deal. Know what you're looking for, find a mentor or coach, put together the right investment team, and be persistent. And if you want to know more about what I'm doing at the 1.5 million square foot Peerless Mill, check out this video here.